We look back on the Miami Heat series one last time, and enough with the Marcus Smart slander. Plus, will the Celtics be able to do what they did against Miami against Golden State and get away with it? We're going to preview a little bit of this series and what I hope doesn't come down to just a simple Robert Williams knee injury. It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course, the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making the show part of your daily routine and your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday. Nah, not good enough. Every day now. Every day now for the rest of the season, for the rest of the NBA Finals, because that's how we do it here on Locked On Celtics. Celtics are in the NBA Finals, so bonus coverage all around. For me, John Karalis, I cover the Celtics for Boston Sports Journal, maybe from Boston Sports Journal too. I've written a book called The Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars, and I was one of the media voters for the 75th anniversary team. Coming to you still from Miami, Florida. I am still here, getting ready to head back to Boston and then quickly turn around to head to San Francisco. But we still got to celebrate this game with Tom Westerholm, Tom_NBA. How you doing over there, Tom?
I'm good, man. It's been a wild ride, but it's it's been a heck of a week here. Did you tell me the Celtics are in the finals? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, that's the thing. Did you know that the Celtics are a basketball team? Did you know that?
Okay. I'm somewhat familiar with the sport, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then there's this thing called the playoffs, and the Celtics have now beaten 3 teams, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, and did you know Miami had a team? Miami has a basketball team. They are actually pretty good, and the Celtics beat them. And now they're in this thing called the NBA Finals. No.
Well, let's talk about it.
This is the type of stuff that you get only on the Locked On Celtics podcast. No one else is going to explain to you how playoffs in basketball work. I've been going like crazy here, and so I haven't even been able to watch anything, or we're still celebrating this win over the Miami Heat. Looking at like some of the aftermath, people like I can't believe people are like getting on Marcus Smart's ass. Like after this game, like I'm waking up to Twitter being upset about Marcus Smart. Like the team's going to the NBA Finals. Are you really like such a smart hater that you have to find a way in this celebratory move? Like you still gonna find a way to be, oh, Marcus Smart, I can't stand that. And you're going to the NBA Finals, for God's sake. I can't believe people are just like still won't take a day off from that stuff.
Listen, I think I'm always up for bashing on smart bashers. I think especially when you look at the team the Celtics are about to play, right? Like the Warriors, like you need somebody like Marcus Smart. You need somebody who can do the things defensively that he can do, who can do the switching that he can do. Like, okay, yeah, I thought some of his shot selection down the stretch might not have been the best. You know what? Celtics won. Like, yeah, if Jimmy Butler makes that 3, we're having a very different conversation, obviously. But even then, I don't think that you're having like a conversation that's like, hey, maybe the Celtics should get rid of Smart, because like this team was the best starting lineup in the NBA all season. You know, they were like this group is under contract for quite some time. Like it's like you can critique, certain things about him, but when you start getting into stuff like, Marcus Smart is, almost cost the Celtics the series, all that stuff. It's like, well, okay, but the Celtics are not in this series without Marcus Smart either. So like, I mean, something like, it is funny if you're people who need something to complain about, find things to complain about as the Celtics reach the NBA Finals for the first time in over a decade.
Right. It's that like, be self-aware. You need something to complain about. You're not happy unless you're upset. And there are some people who are just like...
Or Karalis, more importantly, you have nothing interesting to say unless you are upset.
Right. That's a good point, because there are some people who can only be interesting if they're mad. And that's that's a hell of a hat to hang, hell of a place to hang your hat. But like,
it really pigeonholes you. It really gives you.
Really does.
You don't have a lot of flexibility if that's your thing.
Right. Because when the team actually succeeds, you're like, well, I got to be mad about something. And then you just look like kind of a petty jerk.
Yeah.
But so and I said this on last night's podcast, but I'm happy to kind of like go over it again with somebody else here. Beginning of the game, first quarter, Marcus Smart. I didn't like what Marcus Smart was doing. So Marcus, in the early goings, I was like, okay, buddy, let's dial it back a little bit. He took one shot, the 1-3 that he made early on, as he was pulling up. I literally said out loud, "Oh, Marcus," and he made it. I was laughing. The early shot selection was not great, but also he was a big part of why they built that lead, and he settled down. And in the middle quarters, he was great.
Yeah. My
contention is that the fourth quarter was not Marcus Smart's necessarily fault. And people will only, this is, to me, the people who are complaining about the fourth quarter are people who are, or fourth quarter Marcus Smart, are people who are only watching the ball go in and out and aren't able or aren't willing to see why certain things are happening, which is fine. Not everybody's going to be able to do that. But that fourth quarter, the last 4 minutes or so, that stagnant offense was gross. I hated it. And if you're going to work the clock down, not even work the clock down, wait for the clock to get down to like 7 or 8, and you give it to Jayson Tatum, and he makes one move, draws two, and then kicks it to somebody. Well, what's Marcus Smart going to do when he's got the ball with 5, 6 on the clock? Now, there are a couple of shots that he took with 11 or 12 on the clock. Fine. Like, that's, you want him to keep moving and get something else. That's fair. But when you're in a stagnant offense and there are no shots coming, when Marcus gets the ball, he has an open shot. You put him in the position to be like, well, here's the open shot. I got to take it. Because the next thing you can do is, okay, I can work it around to Jaylen, but Jaylen's going to get double teamed, and now I'm going to get the ball with 2 seconds. So to me, it was less Marcus saying, oh, I'm going to be this hero and take over, and we're going to go as I go. And it was more, the Celtics got away from what was working. I'm fine with working the clock down to the single digits, but do it with some passes, do it with some movement. Find something that you keep working. Like, you can't just get a mismatch for Tatum. Find a mismatch for Jaylen. Find a mismatch for somebody else. Keep working the ball. You never know. Even if you say, well, Jimmy Butler was on Jaylen, you never know when Jimmy's going to help, and you create a lane for Jaylen Brown. So I think the late game discussion is less about Marcus Smart and more about the Celtics need to get away from that stagnant type of late game offense when they have a lead and just go and build on a lead rather than just try to milk the clock.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I think, Tatum, when, like, Nekias Duncan had a really good point on this in like a Twitter thread where when the Celtics slowed the ball down, how much harder that made it for him. The Heat had so much more of a chance to kind of load up on him and make it hard. And it takes away options. Like, when he attacks early, when the Celtics aren't slowing it down, when he attacks early, everything is so much easier. There's so much more, space to work with. There's so many more options. If he kicks the ball, that person can then swing the ball. That person can swing the ball, whatever it might be. It's just so much harder when there's less time on the clock. And yeah, like, to your point, the other thing about Smart taking those shots, any one of those open 3-pointers, if it goes in, it's the kill shot. It's the dagger. It's over at that point, right? Like, so it's, it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know how you felt about the Jimmy Butler 3. It's kind of like that shot. It's like you went for the win, and I kind of understand and respect that. Like, if Jimmy Butler makes that 3, it is, like, I'm sorry, it's just like that 1-point lead would have felt like 20-point lead. Like at that stage in the game, and true for Smart. If he makes that 3, it's over. And I think there's a lot of value in that being the shot that you take. So look, did he shoot well? Did he put the Celtics in a tough? Absolutely. But I do think Celtics, the biggest thing is, like, I understand milking the clock. I understand that, like, you look at that clock and you're like, I don't want to give them a chance to get back in it, but I I just never think slowing the game. I don't think it's very fair to blame anybody for what happens when you make that decision, because the other team is going to get back into it, and you're rolling the dice that you're going to be able to finish them off.
So, all right, this brings me to a point where if we'll fold in Golden State and why the Celtics should be more like Golden State in this situation. And I think this has something to do with the experience of a Warriors team versus the experience of a Celtics team. I'll talk about that in just a second. First, let's talk about PrizePicks. You can still have a great daily fantasy option for the NBA. Not so daily anymore. It's going to be like you have at the most 7 games. But PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy that you will love, and you can continue after the NBA season is over because it involves all sports. You can make picks on over-unders throughout the entire major sports universe here. It's very simple. People love this game. It's 2 to 5 players that you can pick on an over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers, which is awesome. It's not you doing daily fantasy against a bunch of experts and people with high-powered computers and all of that. So it's just you, and you can do it in 60 seconds or less. And PrizePicks offers safe and fast withdrawals. You can use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. You can think of any prop you can think of: points scored, rebounds, steals. It's all there. And like I said, the mixed sport entries. So do a Rafael Devers home run or RBI over-under on top of Jayson Tatum points over-under. You can do that on PrizePicks. So it's not just NBA, it's college basketball when they're in session, college football, NFL, MLB, soccer, MMA. It's all right there. Whatever is in season, you got it right there. For a limited time, PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all our users. You get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. But you got to use the code NBA. This is an exclusive offer for Locked On fans. Sign up today. Use the code NBA, $50 free if a player in your first PrizePick entry scores a single point. Thanks for making On Celtics your first listen every day. Why not listen to NBA Big Board as your second listen? I got this. My mouth, it'll come around. Locked On NBA Big Board is hosted by Rafael Barlow, who's awesome. He is in person covering all the prospects. He's scouting everybody. He's really great. So check out Locked On NBA Big Board wherever you get your podcast, wherever you found Locked On Celtics. Let's bring Tom Westerholm back in, and let me continue my point from before. So the Warriors, when you see them in a situation like Boston was in, they run their stuff. They go out there. Seth Curry has no fear of missing a shot because they have the confidence like, hey, if I miss, we'll just go back and we'll stop them. We'll get the rebound and we'll come back down. We'll score. Not a big deal. You're up 13 at that point. Come down. I'm going to take a good shot. I'm going to take a good shot for me. And obviously a good shot for Steph is not a good shot for everybody else in the league, but for him, it's good. But it works for, like, they'll still run pick and rolls. They'll run handoffs with Draymond. They'll run split action. They'll do all of their normal stuff. That's part of why the Warriors are so damn good. No fear of the moment. No fear of the missed shot. The Celtics in the last few minutes of that game, I'm not sure if fear is the right word, but okay, maybe fear is the right word. They were afraid of the game. They were just, we got it. They were like, we got it. We're here. Let's just milk that clock as much as we can and try to out. And honestly, they were like, they almost got what they deserved because milking that clock the way they did. I thought that Butler 3 was going in. And in that moment, I didn't have any issue with that 3. Jimmy made that exact same shot earlier in the game, made that exact same 3-pointer. When you're Jimmy Butler, you can will your team to win. That's a shot. Like, what are you going to do? People say, oh, you got to play for the tie. Like, are you kidding me? The Celtics have started every quarter. Like, yeah, you have momentum, but like the Celtics could have come down and scored. They needed anything they could to score. You have a master grifter in Marcus Smart. Miami's in the penalty. You too much left a chance with too much time. I agree with your point that 1 point lead would have felt like 20, but the Celtics still would have had time to go out there and force something and potentially get free throws. And I understand going for the win. I get it. So, but Boston was, I think, just so afraid of losing that they played not to lose. And when you watch the Warriors, and if the Warriors were up 13 in that situation, I just have to believe like they would have won by 25 because they just come down and they have no fear. They play free, they play loose, and they're okay with the result.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that one thing that definitely happened to the Celtics was they were the better team and they were understandably afraid of losing. Like, you can't blame them for being afraid of losing. That Heat team is actually really scary. Like, nobody wanted to give them that credit before the series, but like that Heat team is scary. They are good. They are tough. They will just go at your neck. Jimmy Butler will go at your neck. Jimmy Butler will go for the win with, 11 seconds left. Like, that is a nasty, nasty team that just wants to beat you up and, take your lunch money. And the Celtics almost gave it up. But you know what? That's the thing. The Celtics are the better team. And again, I almost feel like, we're kind of critiquing the Celtics a little unfairly. Who among us didn't look at that game and be like, I still think the Celtics might lose this? Like, the whole game, they led wire to wire, and every single one of us, even when they were up 13 with 3 minutes left, I still was like, yeah, I think they got this. I don't know. Yeah. There was nothing about this, and I think that's going to be the interesting thing. I think about the Warriors is that there isn't, for the Celtics, there is no history there, right? There's history from the regular season, but there's no playoff history there. The Heat, the Celtics had a playoff history against. They knew that they could lose to the Heat. They knew the Heat could come back and beat them.
Right.
We don't we haven't seen the Celtics against the Warriors. The Celtics haven't seen the Celtics against the Warriors. There's not as much of a dragon to slay. Whereas they had to slay that Heat team. They had to beat Jimmy Butler, and they did it. And I do kind of wonder if that's going to be kind of a weight off their back, where now maybe they're in the same situation with Golden State. Maybe they do play a little bit more freely. Maybe they do kind of feel like, okay, we did it against the Heat, the team that tormented us. Maybe it's not going to happen against the Warriors. Maybe they're a little bit more comfortable. So, I mean, I really do. I felt for the Celtics as it was happening. I was like, yeah. I get why this is happening. I get why you're concerned. That I also would be feeling exactly the same way you are. How could you not? You can say you're confident. You can say we believe in our team. Of course the Celtics do. Of course they believe in their team. Of course they're really good. Sure. But of course, they were going to be scared of that Heat team. It made all the sense in the world. And you know what? They came out the other end as winners because I do think that they were about 13 points better than that team. And when the collapse started, they held that 13-point lead just long enough to hold on. So I do think that it will be very interesting to see if they, if they maybe play a little bit more freely, down the stretch against the Warriors. But I think so much we have to take into account, all of the kind of the mental, emotional toll that playing in the Eastern Conference Finals in a Game 7 with finally a chance to get over that hump. Just getting over that hump, I think, was a lot for this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah, you could see it. I do agree with you with the whole point about Miami. And look, they had to play Jimmy Butler the whole game to even have a chance, right? On that bad knee. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that Jimmy Butler underwent successful arthroscopic surgery today to whatever. And it was Max Strus who had the last. I guess in the long run we'll figure out what Max Strus ultimately is as a player. But right now, when you say, well, Max Strus had the last shot, the last field goal attempt for the Miami Heat in this series was a Max Strus contested three-pointer. And if that's what you're relying on, then you're probably not good enough, right? You're just not good enough. And even if it's by 1 point or 2 points, you're not good enough. So that's just what it is. I think the lack of experience for the Celtics, just not feeling comfortable enough. It's almost like I go back to Milwaukee last season. And I wonder how this is going to impact the Celtics in the finals. Milwaukee looked shaky and scared all playoffs long. And it took Kevin Durant, his foot being on the line, and then Milwaukee collapsed. A similar type of thing where it looked like they were afraid and they just get away from what they're doing and brought all the way back. And then they go in finals and it was like, oh, okay, we are good. And now we're going to show you how good we are. The Celtics don't have Giannis, so it changes the dynamic of this series as compared to last year's finals. But they getting past this with that shakiness, now you're like, okay, we got it. We're good.
Yeah.
Now we can play. Now we can just play. And maybe Tatum says, okay, this is going to be a little bit different because Golden State Warriors aren't going to be that physical a defense. They're going to be a swarming defense, but they're not going to be physical and not to that level. This is going to feel like a walk through the park, I think, for some of these guys as they drive. There's still going to be the potential for a lot of turnovers, but I think just getting their asses kicked, they're going to feel a lot better. And it's going to be interesting to see how this impacts their ability to play.
It's going to be really interesting because, I think one of the things that happened is the Heat watched the Bucks, just kind of beat the crap out of the Celtics, physically for 7 games, and the Heat said, "Oh, yeah, we can do that. We can beat you up." I don't think the Warriors can do that. The Warriors are a phenomenal defense, a smart defense, or just just as high IQ as you could possibly ask for from a defense. But they're not built the way that the Heat and the Bucks are. And not just a very different. I'm actually really looking forward to it because those bruising games are fun to watch for a while, but it's going to be really fun to see kind of style and just two really hyper brilliances going at each other. And maybe it's a little bit less about who can swing the biggest haymaker. It's a little bit more about how the switches are executed, how the rotations work, or whatever it might be. And you're right. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be. I do think it's going to be different, and this is going to be very interesting and very entertaining to watch.
Let's get into some more of this Golden State thing because now we've got to shift our focus. Enough of Miami. Miami is a worthy opponent, and it could have gone either way, but they lose. Boston wins, and now it's on to Golden State. So we will figure out a little bit more. We'll get into a little bit more of a bit of a preview of the Golden State Warriors. First, let's talk about Rock Auto, which we know there's too many cars out there, makes and models of all sorts, whatever. Each car has its own 10 different trims, and each thing needs something different. And it's impossible for that strip mall auto parts place to have everything that you need, but Rock Auto does. So save yourself the time, save yourself the hassle. Just log on to rockauto.com from home, put in your car's information, figure out what's available there, and you see a very expansive catalog that will give you everything that at every price point that you're looking for. So you want the highest end piece, you can get it. You want to save a few bucks more and get a bargain piece, that's fine. But whichever one it is, you're going to save money on that exact same thing from these chain stores. And no matter how complicated it is, do you need brakes? Do you need something for your engine? And you need a fuel pump? Or do you need wipers or motor oil or carpet? It's all right there for level of thing you need for your car. So head on over to rockauto.com. They've been doing this for 20 years, man. They really take care of their customers. And when you get there, you just write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box. That's how they know we sent you. You're going to save a bunch of money. It's an amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Tom. So NBA Finals, Celtics and Warriors. Still sounds weird to say. The NBA Finals, Celtics and Warriors. It's going to be, I think.
Before we get into it, can I just really quick? It is. I don't think people. I think a lot of outside people who especially Boston sports people, maybe who cover the Red Sox or the Patriots. I don't think they appreciate how weird it is that the Celtics are back in the finals. For some reason, it just harder and more monumental that the Celtics are in the finals as opposed to I don't know, the Red Sox or the Patriots or whatever, the Bruins or whatever it might be. Like this hasn't happened in a long time. Like this
Hasn't
is
happened in a while, yeah.
this is a big deal, dude.
It wasn't supposed to happen, right?
Yeah,
Like, the whole
that's
thing.
another thing.
It was like and it not only it wasn't like a Cinderella run where this is a scrappy team, but wow, look at how great they're playing all season long. People get into that momentum and whatever, like the Memphis Grizzlies, let's say. It wasn't that. It wasn't the team that's built to make it and the expectations were there. It was a team that was in transition. I said the term bridge year how many times? This is an evaluation year. Can the Celtics get to the finals? Can they win a championship with just Tatum and Brown as your two main stars? Do they need to go get a third star? Blah, 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 blah. And at the beginning of the year, like we had 2 solid full months of them absolutely sucking, 2.5 of them being mediocre, just people not even caring. I can tell you from my podcast numbers early on, November, December, not great. Not a lot of interest. People were like, wake me up when it's the All-Star break. To have a team turn it around like that mid-season and around mid-season, it's a great story. Get into the playoffs, you get through, and you get to Milwaukee. And if they were to lose, people, I think the story would be like, wow, what a run. You made it. You beat up a discombobulated Nets team. And you lost to the champs. They got Giannis. Like, what are you supposed to do? Great run. Now let's focus on the Al Horford question in the summer. And who do you get? Blah, blah, blah. But they just kept on winning.
Yeah. Like over and over.
Weird, man. And like, now personally, I've never covered an NBA Finals team. So I'm just caught up in the flow. It's just another game. Like now I have another place to go to. I got to go to San Francisco. Like I just got another game that I've got to go cover. And each time I go to a game, it's like, wow, there's a lot more people here. There's a lot more NBA folks around here. So I don't have the same finals feeling as everybody else who's watching because I'm like, I'm just here. Like we're just grinding. And at some point, hopefully it ends with a duck boat tour. But that would be, but it's weird. It is weird. I 100% agree that it's weird. Now, one question: do you remember? Does the media get a duck boat?
I don't know. This is the first finals run that I've covered too. So yeah, like I have no idea.
I feel like I've seen.
Ask Mark Murphy. Ask the Boston Herald's Mark Murphy. If there's one guy who would know, it's that man.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen like Patriots parades where like Patriots media. Like, do the beat writer, do like the few of us like, get the story from the duck boat. Because I tell you what, if I get on a duck boat, I'm going full Gronk, man. I'm going full Gronk, shirtless, throw me beers, man. I'm going for it. like I scored 10 points in a game 2 or something. No, I won't. But no one wants to see that.
I think every one of your listeners wants to see it.
No, I'm like the Greek Rick Ross right now. Like you just don't want me. You just don't want me. Anyway, let's quickly just dive into this, just because I'm going to do a crossover with Locked On Warriors, and they're going to kick me out of my hotel room in 10 minutes. I think this is going to be such an interesting series because of the stuff before. Like the defense is going to be huge because there's 2 amazing defenses, but also there's the potential for a lot of points to be scored as well. I think we're going to see like routinely like 120 to 115 and still be like, wow, there was some great defense played, but there's going to be the potential for some runs. And the one thing I'm afraid of is how combustible that Warriors offense is. If the Celtics play like they played in the first game, game 6, they're gonna get smoked. If you have 4 turnovers, if Jaylen has 4 turnovers and Jayson has 3 turnovers in the first quarter, they're gonna lose that first quarter 45 to like 10. Like they are gonna get roped, and it's just gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because I think what it comes down to is like one of the reasons the Celtics lost those quarters by so much was that, like, again, like the Heat just beat them up, right? They forced all these, and it was the Celtics could turn the ball over certainly, but it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be because of physicality. To me, I think one of the biggest issues the Celtics have to avoid is the stagnant offensive stretches. It's not so much like, I mean, limit the turnovers certainly, like don't hand the ball to the other team. That's a big one. But also, like, you have to limit the stagnant stretches. Like it's kind of an old cliche, but like, can you make the 12-0 run like 12-4 instead? Can you just can you make them miss? If they've scored on 2 straight possessions, can you make them miss the third, even if they do score on the fourth? Like those little things that can limit the runs and just not let them build and build and build. Because I think if they build and build and build, that's where you're going to get in trouble, especially against this Warriors team that just thrives on momentum and thrives on that kind of swaggering, like, I just hit a 3, watch me hit another one. Ooh, I bet you don't think I can hit this one, huh? Well, look at this, I made this one. You can't let the Warriors get into that, especially if you're missing shots on the other end. So to me, I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys. Is just like you gotta cut those runs off as early as you can, limit them to the extent that you can, because you're not going to be able to limit all of them. But it can't be 18-0. It can't be 16-2. It's got to be like 12-4 or something like that.
That's a huge thing. I'm afraid that this series might come down to whether Robert Williams can be effective or not.
It's tough. Yeah.
That is where I feel like there's so much, like the Boston's double big matchup can be so advantageous. Yep. It's going to suck if Rob can't be himself. Now, here's the good thing, that there's a couple days before these games, there's an extra game of rest. And whenever Rob's had the extra day of rest, he's been good or good enough. And I think the drawn out schedule for this series might be enough for Rob to be effective, because in Game 7 he was not effective at all. And I truly believe that his inability to be effective got into his head, and it kept him from playing his at least a modified self, right? Like a lot of players are good enough where they say, okay, Jimmy Butler, I'm not whole. I know that I can't play off of this right knee. So I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to play a little bit differently. I'm going to go this way. I'm going to spin this way, and I'm going to push off of this leg, and I'm going to be somewhat effective. Butler's a different animal. He's just, amazing. But Rob, I don't think is at that point yet where he's trying to play through the pain. Like, credit to him for trying to play through the pain, but also like if he's not able to kind of channel that and say, here's what I need to do to be effective, even with, at 60%, then if he's not able to do that, then that takes away such a huge advantage for the Celtics.
Yeah, you're 100% right that's huge. I mean, like, you heard Ime in the post game locker room. He's like shouting at everybody. He's like, hey, good hustle, great rebound, great block shot. The one guy that he calls out by name, or like the first guy that he calls out by name, is Robert Williams for playing hurt. And in his post game, comments, he says like, Rob is not 100%. He can't give us everything that is that Rob is. We're just asking him to do what he can, basically. And it's like, I mean, that's tough, because like, so much of what makes Rob is how physically imposing he is, and how high he leaps, and how how easy it is for him to catch lobs and block shots and all that stuff. So I'm with you, man. Whatever happens in this series, I hope that it doesn't come down to Rob was hurt, Rob was banged up, because that would take a lot of the fun out of what should be just truly like a fun, exciting, fresh kind of series.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. But first, I just saw this meme that came across the old Twitter machine. I'm sure fans are going to love this. This one's just for the fans. Kyrie and KD left their teams to join forces. Those teams ended up in the NBA Finals. I'm going to put this up on the ring light. I'm going to watch that out. But like, that's hilarious, and I didn't even think of that. Kyrie left the Celtics. KD left the Warriors, and they both join forces so they can get to the NBA Finals, and it's the Celtics and the Warriors. So,
and not only that, the team that eliminated them was the team that Kyrie left and that KD could have joined. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's right. So, love it. I can't say anything, but I love it. Like, I love that kind of stuff. I'm 100% all on board with players making their own decisions. You want to team up. That's fine. But when you team up, you got to be ready for stuff like this. And this is kind of delicious. So that's a fun way to end it. We'll have plenty of time to fully preview the Warriors. So Tom, I'll let you go. Thanks for hopping on.
Appreciate you, my man.
I will do a crossover with Locked On Warriors. We'll get into it. We'll talk about this, and it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm definitely gonna be less confident because I don't know how this series is gonna go. But we'll see how it goes. So thank you all for listening, watching, subscribing. We crossed the 6,500 mark. We did it. 500 new subscribers per series. Let's bump that up because I want more than 7,000. It's the NBA Finals. We got to step up our game. Can we get, this is a drawn out thing. So can we get to 7,500, 1,000 new subscribers during the NBA Finals? Can you get to 1,000 for me? That means spreading the word, sharing the podcast whenever you get it. When people who don't know say, hey, I want something Celtics to listen to or watch, you say, I got it for you. It's the Locked On Celtics podcast, and it's on the Locked On Podcast Network.